Stephen Kapos was born in Budapest in 1937 and lived in hiding after the Nazi invasion in 1944. That was until Hungary was liberated by Soviet forces. His father was held at the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. Stephen, now 87, is a member of the group Survivors and Descendants of the Holocaust Against the Genocide in Gaza, and I spoke to him earlier today. I began by asking him to describe his experience as a 7-year-old in Hungary living under Nazi occupation.
The war hasn't reached Hungary until very late. And the Germans suddenly invaded when they discovered that the then Hungarian government was starting to put feelers out towards the West about leaving the alliance. And of course, German intelligence got wind of that. And suddenly, a close ally became an unreliable ally and invaded in March 1944. March 19th, actually, on 1944. I have to say that because I was 7-year-old, I was not aware very much of the political implications of what was going around me. And I did realize there were German soldiers everywhere all of a sudden. I didn't understand that was threatening to us particularly. I was into military things. All my toys were kind of military related, and I was saluting the German officers, and they saluted back on the streets. So it wasn't a traumatic event and a shock. It was a bit later that I realized that we were in danger.
Can you talk about that then? When did that become clear that you were in danger? I know that sort of many of your family members did lose their lives in the Holocaust. So sort of what happened next?
The particular branch of family who was based in Transylvania. Transylvania was reattached to Hungary by gift of Hitler, or a bigger part of Transylvania. And my family were farming in those areas. And immediately they were abused and arrested and thrown out of their home and sent to temporary deportation camps locally, from where they were transported to Auschwitz and they died. Most of them, a couple of them came back, but 15 members of my family died in the Holocaust. Mostly from the Transylvanian branch, and a few others who lived in the south of Hungary. And but the Budapest Jews were spared to begin with, until the outright fascist party, the Arrow Cross Party, took over quite late. And then there was they instituted a kind of hunt for Jews. But the official government was hesitant about touching the Budapest Jews, which were quite numerous, 200,000 about, because of Western pressure, and even the Pope sort of trying to intercede on behalf of the Hungarian Budapest Jews. Despite the fact that Eichmann was present all this time and organized the deportation of the Hungarian Jews. But as I said, they were mainly from the countryside to begin with. By about June 44, 400,000 Hungarian Jews from the countryside were deported straight to Auschwitz, and only a few survived.
And let's come up to the present day, because I know you're a member of Survivors and Descendants of the Holocaust Against the Genocide in Gaza. Could you tell me about how your experience, your understanding of the Holocaust has led you to be a campaigner against the war against Palestinians?
I think the root of this goes back to my visit to Israel, where some members of my family ended up living, an aunt and so on, and others. And I was horrified about the racist atmosphere and that racist attitude towards the Palestinians, Arabs, as they call them. And I had a kind of revulsion about what was going on there, and how I was disturbed by how it affected my own family. One particular member of the family, a cousin, who came back from Auschwitz because she was a teenager, a young girl, when she was transported to Auschwitz, and she was put to work. And she was working in one of those warehouses which was sorting clothes left behind as people were herded into the gas chambers. And one day she was sorting her parents' clothes. I mean, it's a real traumatic experience. Yet she managed to come back, survived it, but she was just as racist as the rest of them. And I found that very difficult to cope with. So my sympathy for the Palestinians and the attitude against the discrimination and the racism, which I felt was a denial of the Holocaust experience, that if we went through humiliation and suffering and discrimination, I thought the natural thing would be to never to visit it on anyone. And yet here they were doing just that. And I thought that was terrible. And that's a background to why I joined in the movement to have solidarity with the Palestinian people through the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, even before the events of Gaza, and then joined more actively when this terrible genocide was being perpetrated.
In January this year, I know you attended a demonstration for Palestine solidarity, which the police had tried to ban. So you ended up being called in for questioning by the Metropolitan Police. Now, I know you don't want to talk about that in detail because it's still a live case for certain people and we don't want to sort of intervene in that in any way. But I suppose, could I speak to you in more general terms about the suppression of the Palestinian movement, the pro-Palestinian movement, I suppose, in the UK and elsewhere?
The root of that invitation to the police station was the events of January the 18th demonstration, which was actually banned by the police, turned into a static rally or meeting, which was felt it was an attack on free speech and solidarity and protest. So the organizer turned it into a delegation instead of a march. And I was part of the delegation, which meant that we were intending to walk with carrying flowers, a bunch of tulips, everybody in the delegation. And the delegation was to contain those who spoke at the rally and the leaders of the various sponsoring organizations, PSC and Stop the War, etc. And then we ran into a police cordon, and we put down the flowers there. So the police then called in for questioning those who were in the first line of this delegation, and I was one of them. I was between Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, as it happens, and they were some of the first people who called in for questioning on their caution. That made national news, and then later, all others who were around at the beginning of that delegation, and that's how I fell into it. And at the moment, after the interview I had with the police, We are just waiting for further developments. When all the interviews are completed, and we don't know how far they're going to go down the line, so to speak, to call people in because they are taking their time. And once we understand that once all the interviews are completed, then the papers are going to be passed to the Crown Prosecution Service to decide who will be charged. So at the moment, it's just waiting. But what I found a really important and moving experience is the solidarity demonstration that happened outside the police station before I went in for questioning. I was in there for over an hour approximately, and they were still there when I came out. And it was quite a sizable, enthusiastic group of solidarity demonstrators, and I found that very moving experience.
I want to talk to you about how the memory of the Holocaust is used, because I know sort of you're a member of this organization where you sort of use your experience, your memory, your understanding of the Holocaust to advocate for the people of Palestine, and you connect what's going on in Gaza to what happened in Nazi Germany. There are many other people, often very prominent people, who sort of use the memory of the Holocaust for the precise opposite reason. So you'll have people like Netanyahu saying that, you know, what Hamas are doing is a continuation of the Holocaust, or saying that people who are criticizing what Israel are doing are buying into blood libels and anti-Semitic smears. You also get sort of more moderate politicians, Keir Starmer, for example, who suggests that sort of what we're seeing on our streets when it comes to pro-Palestine demonstrations is something which should be scary to Jewish people. What do you make of that? I mean, have you had a significant amount of pushback personally from people who are opposed to the idea that you, as a Holocaust survivor, express solidarity with the Palestinian people?
It's only occasionally. On the sites where this happens frequently, I'm sure, I don't follow anyway, and I don't want to. But I had occasions where Zionists called me a capo, which is a very serious insult to anybody who is Jewish. But I don't care about what the Zionists do or say, because as far as I'm concerned, they are anybody who's still a Zionist after watching the genocide and the killing of children and innocent civilians is beyond the pale. And I'm not interested in what they say. But there have been kind of provocative actions. I was watching a session of the Security Council, the United Nations, where the Israeli ambassador very theatrically put on a yellow star to try to make that connection and excuse. And it really upset me because I had to wear the yellow star. And that was not theatrical. It was a humiliating stamping of other, being othered and rejected. And I thought it was sickening and cheapening to use that kind of thing for today's events in any way whatsoever. And I think that what is happening is that Israel and the Zionists particularly using the Holocaust experience of the Jewish people as a pass, as a pass to impunity. That the assumption is they suffered so much that they cannot be criticized. They are free to do anything, and then this is turned on a completely innocent people, the Palestinians. So indirectly, they are made to pay for the European disaster of the Holocaust, and I think this is just terrible and completely unjustified. But anti-Semitism, as such, has been generally used as a weapon against, quite widely, against the left, against Jeremy Corbyn, Labour Party, it's pretty much started there in this country. And then it's found to be very effective, intimidating to people. And so they're using it in a very wide manner. And I think it's appalling.